The Evangelion series is no stranger to strange games, amongst many other things, none of which see any light outside of Japan, ranging from simple retellings of the anime, to mahjong games, to full-on dating sims that take place in an alternate universe. There are quite a few of them. Today, I'm going to focus on one of those games that released on the N64. It's probably one of the better known Evangelion games, but it's still an interesting one that I haven't seen too much about besides some gameplay videos on YouTube, and it's actually a game that I've played in the past. Called simply Neon Genesis Evangelion, released on the 25th of June 1999 for the Nintendo 64, published by Bandai and developed by one of their subsidiaries, Bandai Entertainment Company. The game didn't review all too well, receiving mid-scores, and many criticized it for its limited interactivity. While Bandai North America did consider releasing this game in the States, they ultimately decided that the gameplay wouldn't be suitable for Western audiences, and so the only way to play this now is to emulate it or track down a copy from Japan, which would also require a Japanese or modified N64. Whilst it is described as a fighting game on the Wikipedia page for some reason, I would call it more of a collection of minigames, with a fighting game-esque minigame being just more prominent and actually having some depth compared to all the others. It's EVA WarioWare. The game is divided into missions which show you a short recreation of a scene from the anime, followed by a briefing and controls overview, before you get thrown into a minigame sequence where you usually have to defeat an angel. The game covers events of the entirety of the anime, as well as the end of Evangelion movie that acts as the real ending to the series. On the surface, it is a very simple looking game and a cheap cash-in on the popular anime, but despite its MIDI tracks and crusty graphics, I still believe it has something to offer. Of course, if you haven't watched the Evangelion anime, this video will spoil things, and honestly, unless you have watched it, this game won't make any sense. Not because Evangelion makes little sense or I won't be going much into it, but because this game doesn't try very hard to make a cohesive narrative, but more show off some of the scenes from the anime and let you play out some of the more iconic battles. It is purely fan service. Cruel's Angel Thesis does sound like it's being played by Spirit Tracks Link though. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into the game. Mission 1. Straight off the bat, the game doesn't waste any time setting up the first fight with Satchel attacking the city and Shinji already in the mech getting ready to fight him. As I mentioned before, this is more of a collection of minigames than a fighting game, but this one is clearly intended to be the main selling point. In the top left and right corners, you can see the health bar of Unit 1 and Angel respectively. In the bottom left, you have your sync meter, which increases if you attack, perform certain actions like breaking the Angel's AT field, or for special events that can happen, which we'll get to soon. As it gets higher, your basic combo will become longer, and you will be able to perform certain grabs you weren't before, or have your grabs altered. If it falls too low, you lose the ability to grab at all. In the middle, you get a lovely picture of Shinji, which will occasionally, or often, scream in your face. In the bottom right, you will have a time limit if your umbilical cable or the mech's power supply gets disconnected, which happens very easily pretty much any time you are thrown. When I first played this, the controls made absolutely no sense to me, and it seemed like things happen at random, most likely because I didn't understand the controls written in Japanese, but while they are awkward to perform sometimes, they are quite simple provided you actually know them and not just mash like I did. Left and right on the analog stick moves your character. You can use a basic attack, which usually just means a punch with A. The higher your sync gauge is, the more hits you will be able to perform. Holding up or down when attacking with A could also give you other moves, like a kick at the end of the combo if your sync gauge is high enough. You can guard with B, though it's not that helpful, but if you're also holding back on the analog stick, you can do a dodge, which is quite useful. Pressing R in a direction will do a little hop in that way, which can be used for closing distances or dodging attacks, though I never found it to be that useful, and in fact it looks really goofy when you do it. Generally, stick to dodging with B. If you happen to be far away from the angel, which can only happen if you or the angel get thrown from certain grabs far enough, you can hold R and forward to start running towards the angel. It will start a little cutscene where if you press certain buttons like A and B, or A in a direction when Unit's 1 eyes glow, you can do a special attack, which again will change up depending on your sync gauge. You can also press A and B at the same time to do a grab attack. Holding up or down when doing the grab will do different animations, which also alters depending on your sync gauge. Generally, moves change after hitting 60 and 100%. If you fall below 40%, your moveset is seriously reduced to a point where you can't even perform grabs. Lastly, pressing down C puts up your AT field, which is essentially a big shield. Now if you want to hold up the AT shield for longer, you'll need to press down C followed by alternating mashing A and down C. Get used to doing this a lot, as mashing these buttons comes back many times throughout the game. If you can get the angel to put up their AT shield whilst yours is activated, you will be able to mash A and down C to start breaking the angel's shield. You will have to fill up the bar by mashing 3 times before you are successful, but it does get easier the higher your sync gauge is. If you manage to break it, the angel will not be able to guard, making it a lot easier to approach and allowing you to perform your full basic combo uninterrupted. If you die at any point in the game from losing all of your health or failing a minigame mechanic, you can easily restart from the beginning of the gameplay section, so it's not too punishing when you do lose. Now, that might have sounded like a lot, but every other minigame will take nowhere near as long to explain. As you can see, many scenes from the anime have been recreated and can be triggered under certain conditions. For example, if you suck at the game like me because you don't understand how you're supposed to be playing it, you might get thrown by Satchel enough to almost die and have your Eva awaken just like it does in the anime. Unfortunately, here it sounds like someone stepped on a really angry and sickly cow. This maxes out your sync gauge and allows you to execute more impressive moves. I keep calling them moves, but it's really just a different few second long cutscene that gets triggered. But there are quite a few of them to be fair. For example, every time Satchel grabs you, it triggers a different scene, which I'll say is kind of cool. You can have a fight that more closely follows the anime, or you can just beat the angel's ass from the start. In the end, we deal with the first angel and move on to the next mission. Mission 2 is more of the same. This time you are fighting Shamshell. Shinji comes equipped with a gun, which you don't get to use as it quickly gets sliced into 2. In here, you can trigger another scene that mimics the anime by getting thrown by the angel. Note that not all throws will trigger it. I'm not sure if it is random or if there are specific ways you can force it to trigger, but triggering this scene makes Shinji take out a progressive knife which he wields for the rest of the battle. It honestly doesn't change anything besides some of your basic animations, so we shank Shamshell and move on to mission 3. Now for a fan favorite. How can you not love this geometric hotbot? Women wish they could be it. Men wish they could be it. It's the one and only, mathematically perfect Ramiel. You aim and you shoot. That's it. Okay, so the reticle moves around quite a bit, and you have to keep it on the target until the bigger reticle lines up, then shoot. If you take too long, Ramiel will start blasting first, and Ray will come to shield you, giving you more time. Shooting while Ray is shielding you will actually trigger a cutscene that doesn't play if you take down Ramiel early.
Enemy! ごめんなさい。こういう時、どんな顔すればいいのかわからないの。笑えばいいと思うよ。
Mission 4. This time you're fighting Jet alone. Well, I say fighting, but you're really just chasing after it. And by chasing, I mean you're alternating mashing down C and A until you speed up enough to catch up with it. A short cinematic plays where Misato tries to input the password unsuccessfully, and then the second part of the misadventure happens. This time you're trying to hold on to Jet alone and occasionally have to wrestle it back by holding either left or right and mashing down C and A. This is where my biggest gripe with the game comes up. The amount of time you have to mash these buttons in this game is just too much, and they want you to mash it. I failed many times in this game on the various mashing mechanics, and it honestly is the most annoying part of the game, and it just gets harder. Thankfully, as it is still quite early, it's not the worst, but trust me when I say it gets very taxing by the end. Mission 5. Next up is Isafel. We get a lovely cutscene of Shinji and Asuka trying to fight him, but they just can't seem to work together. so we gotta have a training montage. Oh yeah, Asuka is here now. Unfortunately, we don't have the time or budget for a training montage, but you can select practice mode to, well, practice for the upcoming minigame. As Shinji and Asuka tap away on their fingers, all you have to do is press the button sequence that is on screen using the C buttons within the red bar that is moving across. These inputs are the exact same as the ones you will see in the actual minigame, the only difference being that if you fail at any point here, the song will continue till the end. The actual battle is a pretty good recreation of the anime sequence where Shinji and Asuka do a synchronized dance-style battle for 62 seconds. There's an explosion that covers up the final set of inputs, making you unable to press them and resulting in the two mechs down on the ground, similar to how the sequence ended in the anime. What's really cool about it is that if you press up C 3 times for the final input, you will get an alternate scene of the two mechs striking a pose and finishing the fight in style. Mission 6. An angel is found inside a volcano, and it makes Gendo wiggle his ears happily. Asuka uses expansion jutsu and happily dives into the magma. Giant Strong Entry! And our next minigame begins. Here you move the camera left and right until you find the angel. Target him with Z, keep it on him until you get a lock-on prompt, input the button sequence on the screen within the time limit. You can also press B to dodge the angel if he gets too close without you being able to lock onto him. Failing to dodge or lock onto the angel will deal damage to you, represented by the cracks in the suit's window, but failing on the inputs won't hurt you at all. Clear the inputs 3 times and on to mission 7. A biblically accurate angel is falling down from space, and you have to make a run for it. Remember when they called this a fighting game? Well, here you need to tap A on the shrinking and growing green areas. Each tap increases the green bar at the end, which is what you're actually trying to press on. You can press the moving green bars multiple times, but clicking outside of them shrinks the final green bar. If you manage to hit the final green bar 3 times, you get to mash down C and A until Rei and Asuka come to help you and finish off the angel. Before I move on to the next mission, I want to mention the music of this game. Ignoring a few tracks that really don't sound great, most of the songs here sound pretty alright. All the background music in this video consists of the songs from the game. I'm sure they did the best they could with the power of the N64, and I would say that it really does help to sell the whole experience. The little bits of voice acting in this game are also done by the original anime actors. With that tangent out of the way, on to mission 8. A new EVA unit is introduced, and it already has its sights set for the Best Mad Cow award. Having already shamed into submission Asuka and Rei, Shinji is too scared to fight it, not because his friend is stuck inside of it, so his controls get overridden by the dummy plot system. This doesn't really change anything up in terms of the mechanics though. It's still the same minigame you saw in missions 1 and 2, but this time you're fighting a stretchy EVA with sick moves. I know I'm skipping and rushing through a lot of these, specifically the story setups for each mission, but with how short this game is, I still want there to be some incentive for others to play and experience it. Plus, this game skips a lot already. We dispatch our dear friend and move on to mission 9.
目標は完全に沈黙しました。これがダミープラグの力なの。
Once again, we start with Asuka and Rei failing to stop an angel who manages to infiltrate the Nerf headquarters. This time is just a set of QuickTime events consisting of a direction on the analog stick and either the A or B button. These can be quite tight, but failing one results in you only losing some health, or sometimes an arm. Do these a few times and you manage to get the angel out of the headquarters. I really like the cutscene that plays after this, so I'll just let it play in its entirety.
のシンクロ率が 400% を超えています。
やはり目覚めたの、彼女が。私たちにはもうエヴァを止めることができないわ。
初号機の覚醒と解放、ゼーレが黙っちゃいませんな。これもシナリオ通りですが、碇司令。始まったな。ああ、全てはこれからだ。
I honestly love how goofy the Eva sounds, and I think this scene was just really well done in general. Again, this is the N64 we are talking about. Now, I'm sure you noticed the Eva's arm growing back. So what happens if you don't fill any of the QuickTime events? Well, you do actually get a different version of the cutscene where the arm doesn't regrow. A small detail, but still a nice one to see. And with that, we go on to mission 10. This is a weird one. Another space angel appears and Ray collects the Spear of Longinus to throw at him. You use the control stick to adjust the spear as it's flying, making sure the numbers are as close to 0 as possible. You have until the distance reaches 1,000 kilometers, and when the numbers are flashing, it means the values are close enough to be accepted. Unfortunately, the numbers don't indicate negative values, which can make things confusing, but what you want to do is tilt the stick a small amount down until the Y value gets close to 0. Then, tilt the stick back up to make the bottom value return as close to 0 as well. Make sure to tilt it by small amounts, as going too far will make the spear veer off completely. After succeeding, you will have another opportunity to mash down C and A before breaking through the AT field and making the angel disappear like it's a PowerPoint object. Mission 11. Shinji gets a new boyfriend. Shinji spends some quality time with his new boyfriend. Shinji's boyfriend turns out to be an angel. You gotta kill Shinji's boyfriend. Okay, back to the classic fighting game we all know and love, only with even less mechanics and more mashing. You don't have your AT field at all, or the Singage for that matter. You do have a knife, but you can only do a slash or a downward stab. Your only other attack is a grab. Many of your attacks will end up in a struggle where you have to mash, you guessed it, down C and A. This mission is easily the worst offender of the mashing in this game, and I was incredibly sick of it by this point. But we're almost done, right? Anyway, Kaoru gives us a big hug, we give him a bigger hug, then we just hold him in our hand and nothing else happens. Mission 12. We're almost there. An all-out battle breaks out and Asuka goes all out on them. There really isn't much to say about this one either. You can attack enemies, but walking into them also works. There are some scenes you can trigger here, like different stomping animations and throwing one plane into another, but as you can't take damage, it doesn't really matter, and the section ends after about a minute and a half. We fade out and credits. Well, that didn't feel right. That's because we were playing on easy. And now that we beat it, we can play through the entire game again on normal to actually see the ending. Also, we got a sound test, I guess. To be fair, it is a very short game, and I was done with this playthrough in less than 2 hours. And despite all the mashing, it really is not that difficult. Before going on to the second playthrough, I want to mention the simulation mode that's found in the game's main menu. Here you can play a VR shooting minigame where you aim the reticle at cardboard cutouts of angels, wait for it to line up, and fire. You can play as different characters here, including Toji and Kaworu, but that has no effect on the gameplay. Just changes the voice lines and the Eva unit you're controlling. You unlock more of these missions as you play through the story, up to Test Program 5, some of which have you using different weapons like a rocket launcher and a beam rifle. I never managed to get a good rank here, but I don't believe it unlocks anything, it's just a neat side mode they included. Anyway, just wanted to get it out of the way before going for round 2 of the story. In options, you can see the newly unlocked sound test and a third impact option, which is just their funny way of saying clear save data. We change up the difficulty and start the story mode again. I did learn that if you spin the control stick as the cutscene of Unit 1 going into battle plays in Mission 1, you can trigger a secret scene where Shinji trips and eats some dirt. The enemies do feel stronger, but it's not too bad. We go sick on Satchel, then we hit Shamshil, then we hit him again, and then again, and then again. Okay, maybe these battles aren't that much harder, but you can see how much it helps if you can destroy their AT field. We finish him off, shoot down Ramiel, wrestle Jet alone, perform a beautiful dance. This time the bar in which you have to press the buttons is smaller. Gently stab this little guy, run, trip, run, trip again, run, mash down CNA, spar with our friends, do some quicktime events, much tighter inputs this time. Raid tries out for the Olympics, but the time in which you have to adjust the spear is shorter, meaning she isn't doing too well. A little more mashing, hug our friend, Asuka decides a therapist is too expensive, and we finally catch up to our first playthrough. Mission 12.5. The mass-produced Evas are deployed into battle and fly around a little before serving themselves up for Asuka. You have to take down all 9 of the Eva units in a Mission 1 style minigame. You can start off with a run for a quick first kill. Then you want to grab every other one with A and B, as that will one-shot them. Some of them will swing their weapons first. Just dodge with back and B and you should be fine to walk and grab them right after. You are unplugged from the start, so you do have a time limit, but it's more than enough even if you do get hit a few times. Unfortunately, we are denied the ending once again as they just finished up cooking up a nice hard mode for you to taste. Might even get dessert this time. You do unlock a model viewer as well, where you can play around with all the different models they have in the game, and I'll say they honestly do look quite impressive. Before going back for the final run of the story mode, I want to come back to the Wikipedia article. Despite being one of the few Eva games to actually have one, it makes some strange statements. I already mentioned how it calls it a fighting game, which I would argue it is not. It also compares it to Cyber Trooper Virtua On. I've played Virtua On in Yakuza Kiwami 2. This game is nothing like that. That is much more of a proper fighting game than this. Also, they call Eva cyborgs, which is kind of a weird stretch. The Evangelion must defeat an enemy angel through melee and projectile attacks. What projectile attacks? One mission in the game plays similarly to Bust a Groove. Okay. One mode is a shooting gallery minigame, where the player uses the Evangelion to shoot formations of angels, and a multiplayer mode where players fight against each other using multiple Evangelions? What? I've played this whole game and have not seen anything like that even mentioned at all. I checked the Wikipedia sources. One is a Wayback Machine of a page for this game on the Japanese Gainax side, which has no mention of the multiplayer. The other source is an instruction manual which has no link to verify. I was able to find scans of the manual in the Internet Archive though. It's a pretty neat manual which acts as the guidebook for the entire game. I never knew that, but they call the analog stick the 3D stick and the C buttons get called C unit. But unfortunately, not a single mention of a multiplayer mode. So both of those sources were a complete lie. I found other mentions of a multiplayer mode on different websites, including an IGN guide saying the button combinations you need to press to access it, none of which worked. I searched on YouTube and did finally find some videos of what looked like a genuine 2-player versus mode, where you can play as different mechs in the game. However, it can only be accessed by a GameShark-like cheat code. So no, it is not a normal part of the game despite so many sites mentioning it. It's kind of cool, you can play as Units 0, 1, 2, and 3, the mass-produced Evas, and even some of the Angels. But with the game's combat not being the best, I can't imagine it being that fun for too long. You don't have all the moves you would expect, such as grabs not working at all. There is an animation when trying, but it just hits them. It is quite bare bones, and whenever one player wins, the loser just sinks into the ground. I assume it's something they created for testing of the game, but it could be that at one point, a proper 2-player mode was planned but ended up getting scrapped. Either way, we solved the mystery of the multiplayer mode. With that out of the way, let's move on to the third and final playthrough. Round 3. More of the same, but even more difficult, with even tighter timings and much more mashing. We kick Satchel's ass again, scream so loud at Shamshell only dogs and angels can hear it. No scope the big shape, stop the giant walking nuke, dance, swim in lava, run, spar, party in Nerf HQ, food break, throw spear, throw spear, throw spear, throw spear, hit, then we mash. A lot. I might have already mentioned like once or twice how much I dislike the mashing in this game, but look at this. They are out to destroy your hands with this hard mode. Thankfully, this is the last time I will ever need to button mash in this game as we Brofist Unit 2. With the final 2 Asuka sections also done, we finally get to Mission 13. The mass-produced Evas come back to life, grow some wings, pose, then fly around as Asuka is dying. Meanwhile, Unit 1 grows its own wings, but cooler. Clearly not needing any more explanation, we proceed to the final gameplay sequence where Shinji, who has a cool new spear, has to fly around and fight all the mass-produced Evas again, who also have a cool new spear that is exactly the same as yours. Unfortunately, this is another short and simple section. You can only move around and swing your weapon very slowly. You only ever fight one of the Evas at a time, and you can get hit 2 times before the third one takes you down. You can beat them very easily by just baiting an attack and then using your own, or alternatively, you can start your attack windup right before the camera turns, and if you time it well, you can get a hit off before they even have a chance. Repeat 8 more times and the screen fades into credits. Their best attempt at Komsusatot playing as you try to comprehend what just happened. After the credits, you get assaulted with this scene, which is just every asset of the game being thrown at your face, which I guess is supposed to represent the third impact, which follows into the final cutscene of the game.
おかえりなさい。
And with that, we completed Neon Genesis Evangelion for the Nintendo 64. What a ride! For beating hard mode, you unlock an actions list and a mission select. The mission select is pretty self-explanatory. From the simulation menu, you can replay any of the missions without the need to play for the entire game from the start, which is great, but will also be very helpful if you want to complete the newly unlocked actions list. I already talked about how there are many different scenes in the game that play out depending on the actions you perform in battles, like the different grabs at different sync levels or even spinning the control stick to make Shinji fall. Well, this is a collection of all the possible actions you can do. You can rewatch any that you have triggered, and any that you haven't will be darkened out. It doesn't unlock anything to my knowledge, but it has a cool incentive to get some more game time from this relatively short game. I myself will not be trying to complete it, at least at this time, but there are guides on GameFAQs that explain how to unlock each scene if you are interested. And with that, I've pretty much gone for everything I wanted in this game. It's an incredibly interesting game and a piece of Evangelion history. Despite its short length, less than desirable recreation/recap of the anime, and the arguably not being a great game, I still enjoy it a lot. And the fact that it's so short and easy makes it a fun thing to do for like an afternoon if you enjoy Evangelion. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it, and if so, please consider subscribing. Let me know in the comments what you think of this game and whether you played it yourself. If you are interested in playing it, I recommend checking out the GameFAQs page for it, as it contains several useful resources which have been a real help in the making of this video. Feel free to suggest any other games you'd like me to check out as well, as I would love to do more of these videos. Anyway, take care for now.